YouTube, welcome back to Old Man Sethus's 2023 game tier list. I am bringing this series to you right now because I wanted to conduct to all of you my infallible opinion on the games that I played last year. Yeah, something like that anyway, I think, right? You know, there's no possible way this could blow up in my face at all. You know, I can't imagine I'm, not gonna piss off a few of you. Make sure you check out the description below where you're going to find the link to this tier list so that you can go and fill it out yourself. Feel free to join the Discord. Make sure you @ me with your completed tier list. Get on Twitter. Make sure you @ me on Twitter. Post it there. I can be the laughingstock of my peers. It'll be amazing for everyone. Whatever the case, enjoy this week's video. There's gonna be plenty more to come, and I'll definitely see you soon. Now, another potentially divisive one out there right now is Darkest Dungeon 2. I am a huge fan of Darkest Dungeon 1, and we'll be talking about that one here in a second, but Darkest Dungeon 2 hit its full release this last year, and I played it because I was actually part of the playtest team when it first came out a year and a half, 2 years ago. And it's been a somewhat of a divisive subject for a lot of people. One of the things that made Darkest Dungeon and Red Hook kind of put on the map was the fact that not only was Darkest Dungeon really good, but the mod community behind it, the community around it, that's really what propped the game up and really kept its longevity. Darkest Dungeon 2 hasn't really offered that currently for it because it's a little bit less accessible due to the fact it's harder to mod, stuff like that, right? Darkest Dungeon 2, fun game if you enjoy a road trip with friends and you're trying to manage everyone not bickering the whole time. It's not so much fun if you enjoy a dungeon crawler. It doesn't really have that like Darkest Dungeon 1 did. Darkest Dungeon 2, still a very fine game. I have nothing but love for Red Hook and all the things that they did with Darkest Dungeon, but as of right now, I can only call Darkest Dungeon 2 an average game. The art style that came out, very, very, very cool in this game. It's a complete different look than the first Darkest Dungeon. But it also, again, it suffers from a lack of replayability. Darkest Dungeon 1 was one that you could play through multiple times, and it always felt good because it was like an overarching campaign. It definitely felt like a huge investment. Like there was definitely an attachment to all these characters you had in Darkest Dungeon 1. Darkest Dungeon 2 didn't really have that feel, and it's definitely done a disservice to what I think a lot of people are expecting. Again, is Darkest Dungeon 2 a perfectly fine game on its own? Absolutely. Like the game, they set out, they being Red Hook, to do something different with Darkest Dungeon 2, and they did it, and it was perfectly fine, but it just came out pretty average. There's nothing really too much exciting going on with it outside of a few mechanical changes from the first game. Now, since we're talking about Darkest Dungeon 2 and Darkest Dungeon 1 in comparison, I'm going to let everyone know that Darkest Dungeon 1 is an S-tier game. Darkest Dungeon 1 is very good if you like a overarching campaign style of RPG where loss matters and you can really feel a setback when somebody who is under your control dies or something else bad happens to them. Again, you don't really get that with Darkest Dungeon 2. It's not a bad thing to see these games be so different, but at the same point in time, one definitely feels a lot better if you're going into this series with a set of expectations. And unfortunately, when one game comes out and kind of sets a standard, the second game may unfortunately be tested against that one. I've been able to at least say that Darkest Dungeon 2 is good. I know people who would probably put this in D or F who are fans of Darkest Dungeon 1 because of how frustrated they were with the changes Red Hook made. But Darkest Dungeon 1 is an S-tier game if you love those kind of big overarching campaigns and decisions matter. Decisions still matter in 2, but it's much different because it plays more like a roguelite Slay the Spire kind of thing. And it doesn't have the same feel. It's still a pretty damn good game, but just not as good as the first. So there you go, guys. The Darkest Dungeon series currently. Darkest Dungeon is S, Darkest Dungeon 2 is C. That might change over time, who knows? Let's see what happens with their next installment if they get around to making one. Oh, Dave the Diver. Dave the Diver was probably gonna be in my top 3 games. Actually, you know what, now that I think about it, guys, it probably would have been one of my top 2 games of the year had I not played Baldur's Gate 3 and had I not played Cyberpunk or some of the other ones that are in this list. But Dave the Diver kind of came out of nowhere if you're unfamiliar with this one. Dave the Diver is a little bit of everything. Dave the Diver is a diving sim, it's a fishing sim, it's a restaurant management sim, it's in some cases a Pokemon sim, and you got to collect them all. You want to get all the fish, you want to get all the things. Dave the Diver is an amazing game that came out this last summer, and I can't suggest it enough. This is definitely an S-tier game. It's gonna be, you might be watching this and just being like, what the hell is this game? I'd never even heard of it. You should really go check it out. It's an amazing experience. It's pixel graphics. It feels good. There's a cast of characters that you get to know during the whole thing. You farm during it. You fish farm during it. You open up a satellite location restaurant because you're slinging sushi at night after you're done diving and catching all the fish. There's a fun story behind the whole thing. This is a game that I cannot say enough good things about. It was an S tier game, and I absolutely think if you're out there looking for a fun diversion in your life, give Dave the Diver a look if you've never checked it out. You deserve to check out Dave the Diver. Dead Cells. Oh man, Dead Cells. Dead Cells. Whew, what a ball buster of a game. This is a great game. This is a very, very, very good game, actually. This is a game that I'm really, really bad at. This is going to probably surprise some people who are familiar with me and my content. If you are brand new here, you may not give a rat's ass one way or the other, but Dead Cells is a A-tier game. Dead Cells is a Metroidvania-esque roguelite where you run around as the guy right there. I can't remember what the hell his name is. I'm going to say he's called the Prisoner. But whatever the case is, you run through, you get different items, you level different stats, you're trying to make your way to kill the king. They came out with a really cool DLC that integrated Castlevania, which was a huge inspiration for the devs of this game, specifically Symphony of the Night. And Dead Cells does it all right. It's tough as nails. It's one that you can have a lot of fun and replayability with. Getting all the different unlocks, challenging yourself, doing stuff like that. If you're looking for story, you're not really going to find it. This one's the story that's kind of like put out through all the, like, the lore is found everywhere, like written on walls or finding books or scrolls or seeing like parts of the environment. But if you're looking for a game that is a very reminiscent of a Symphony of the Night kind of game, and it's Metroidvania, it has everything going for it from run to run, just being different every time. Dead Cells is a game that you deserve to check out as well if you have never heard of it. Otherwise, Dead Cells, absolutely amazing game. And I'm sure some people would put it S tier, but my being a trash can at it and not really playing it as much as I probably could, it's an A tier game for me. Even though I suck at it, I still like it. Dead Island 2. Dead Island 2 was one that just came out this year as well, and I know a lot of people were excited for it because it's been a hot minute since the first Dead Island came out. Dead Island 2 was a good time. I played it for a few streams, enjoyed running around hacking zombies to bits, enjoying some of the writing that they put into this one, like listen to the different characters, you know, interact, do stuff like that, you know, get some of the story of what's going on with all these people who, you know, a ragtag team of people trying to survive the zombie apocalypse. It was a fun game. I think this was a very average game, though. This one's going to go into C. Dead Island, it offered a lot of cool stuff, but it became very samey. There wasn't really a whole lot different going on the entire time. It's basically run from point A to point B, kill a bunch of zombies, don't die, satisfy a quest requirement, move on with your life, get a little bit more story. So if you're really involved in the Dead Island and Dead Island 2 storyline, this one's going to be great. But again, as far as the game goes, it's pretty average. It didn't really do anything great. It didn't do anything bad again. But it was just a game that was there, and if you enjoy that hack and slash running around again, surviving zombies, Dead Island 2, perfectly fine game, but pretty average in my opinion. Desktop Dungeons Rewind. Desktop Dungeons Rewind is exactly that. It's an old game with a new coat of paint. I don't really know if there's much else to say. If you've never heard of Desktop Dungeons, pretty cool. You can sit down, play very, very short bursts. It's a dungeon crawl kind of game where you have a character moving through a tiled dungeon, fighting different monsters, getting different power-ups. The levels matter. If you're a level 1 character trying to fight a level 3 monster, you're going to die pretty quick, so you're always trying to look for the level 1 monsters or the level 2s in some cases to level up. Ultimately, this game is a puzzle game. If you enjoy a kind of dungeon crawly puzzle game with some roguelite progression in terms of opening other things up, getting more power-ups, opening up new classes, this game is a good one to like sit down and waste a little time with. I would call this I'm gonna put probably D, because if you've played the first one, you don't really need to play this one. It's just updated graphics. It's literally the same game as Desktop Dungeons. It's fun, but I wouldn't call it anything great. And like I said, they didn't introduce anything new. It was just a new coat of paint on an old game, so that's why I'm putting it in a D. It's fair. It's nothing great. It's not even average. It's just it's the same goddamn game as what came out a long time ago when it was just Desktop Dungeons. But if you want to check one out, that's kind of fun. If you've never heard of Desktop Dungeons, don't buy the original one, buy this one, because again, it just looks better. But yeah, it's definitely a D kind of game. Oh boy, Diablo 2. Oh, or not Diablo 2. Yeah, Diablo. If this was Diablo 2 and I was going to rate it what I'm going to rate Diablo 4, I'm sure that everyone out there would be coming for my goddamn head. Diablo 4. I gotta do it. I gotta F it, guys. I gotta F it. I had a good time with it, and it had so much potential. And we can't rate a game on potential. We gotta rate it on what it is. Right now, Diablo 4 is a train wreck. Blizzard has done everything they said they weren't going to do with Diablo 4. It was perfectly fine going through it on the story just to see the story. I have had literally no reason to go back since then. It's the same old grindy shit. Nothing really too exceptional. Blizzard's out there trying to MTX your ass right into oblivion. I can't recommend Diablo 4. If you want to play Diablo, just go play Diablo 2. It seems to have a more thriving community right now anyway. Diablo 4 is currently in the dumpster right now. So, again, I can't say everything awful about it, but it's pretty bad right now, you know, and it doesn't really have a whole lot of goodwill. And like I said, Blizzard kind of pissed away all the hopes and dreams of all the people who were excited about this game. So unfortunately, Diablo 4 goes in the bin right now because Blizzard, being Blizzard, decided to do all the dumb shit they did. Double Dragon Gaiden 2, Rise of the Dragons. I didn't even know about this game until I got contacted by the devs and they were like, hey, we're going to pay you to play this. And I was like, okay, you know what? Money sounds good. I don't mind if I do, you know? I wasn't really expecting much. I enjoyed the Double Dragons as a kid. I played the original Double Dragon 1 and Double Dragon 2 on my Nintendo when I was a fat kid. You know, that was a long time ago. That's like, you know, almost 40 years ago now. I'm here like playing a game that I used to play, you know, in my childhood. And I was impressed. The game is really cool. The game has a really neat level up system. You can play as different characters. You can unlock some of the enemies as characters. You get different power-ups every time you play it. The game gets progressively harder as you make your way through it. I had literally zero expectations going into playing this game, and I had a fucking amazing time with it. I don't even know what else to say about it. The game is an A game. For a cheap, fun Steam game that might elicit some, you know, nostalgia for some of you, or might open up a whole cornucopia of new crap for you, having never heard of it. Double Dragon Double Dragon Gaiden was absolutely fun. And I kind of wish I would have spent more time with it. I just had no reason to. I took my pay and I played it a little bit more after that on my own. And I enjoyed it. It was just something I couldn't go back to because I'm a streamer and I always got to play the new goddamn hotness. But if you're out there and you're wondering, I've heard of this and I don't know what to think of it, you have Steam, play it. It's a goddamn great time. I think you're going to really enjoy it. Oh, Dredge, another one that a lot of you may not have ever heard of. This is a nice little independent game that came out this last year. That was it's another fishing game. It's like Dave the Diver. As a matter of fact, Dave the Diver just recently came out with a DLC that incorporates both of the games. But what is Dredge? Dredge is a wandering around on your boat trying to fish, but it also has the thin veneer of a horror game on top of it, and it's actually pretty neat. You're going to be out there sometimes, you're going to be fishing, you know, you're going to catch a bass, but then you're going to catch a really screwed up Cthulhu-esque version of that bass too. And you're really going to be wondering, what in the hell is going on in this game? But Dredge is another cool, relaxing type of game where you upgrade your boat, you upgrade your fishing tools, you wander around from island to island, figuring out kind of what the story is. But this game was a lot of fun, and if you're looking for a nice, relaxing time, I can definitely recommend Dredge. Dredge was easily a B game. I think Dredge probably could have been a little bit more than that if it had a little bit more content. It did come out with a DLC that I didn't play, but Dredge was definitely a good game. I can't really see anything making it into an excellent style of game. But again, it was a fun time, and if you're looking for something to relax to and chill out to, this game is definitely going to be right up that alley, and I do believe you will get your money's worth on it. Endless Dungeon. Endless Dungeon is kind of on the same tip as Desktop Dungeons Rewind. This is a redo of a game that came out a long time called Dungeon of the Endless. If you guys are familiar with Amplitude Studios, they're the developers of this game. They have a few different Endless games. And Endless Dungeon is one that came out that I was really excited for. I played it at TwitchCon a couple years ago, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed talking to the devs. It's another game that's a third person, or I don't know, 3D person. I think Diablo. It's a shooter, but it's got the same kind of Diablo perspective, if you know what I'm talking about. There are people trapped on a space station. You're trying to make your way to the core of the space station to figure out what's going on, because every time you die, you respawn in the top floor of the station. It's got some paper-thin story behind it, but it's essentially a roguelite where you're going through with different characters with different abilities that can get different guns, and you're just making your way down to the bottom. But it did change some things significantly. If you're familiar with the Dungeon of the Endless series, it's a fun game if you're looking to play even with some friends. You can control 3 characters at a time on your own. You can control 2 characters at a time on your own. Otherwise, you're on the hook for playing with friends. Again, a serviceable game, but very average. This one, I had a lot of high hopes for it. Nothing really came of it. They went through some internal stuff as well, from my understanding. And this one didn't really hit the ground running the way that I thought it could. I would suggest if you enjoy, I don't even know how to compare it. I don't want to compare it to Diablo. There's no reason to compare it to fucking Diablo. It's not a Diablo game. It's something completely different. But it was an average game. I had a good time with it, but it just it came out kind of like a wet fart, unfortunately, guys. It's really too bad too. So I was really kind of hoping for more. Faith. On a lark, I played this one with my community because why the hell not? It was it looked like Atari graphics. It's Atari graphics, but it's a horror game, and it does a really good job. If you enjoy a horror game where some of your decisions matter and you can get some different endings and things like that, this was a game that kind of came out of nowhere and surprised me. I'm going to call it a B game. I don't even know how else to describe it, y'all. It was a horror game that was Atari inspired seemingly, and it was just a mindfuck. I think that if you enjoy like horror or suspense games, this is one that you could check out. There were even moments where some of the jump scares were done with old pixel art graphics, and they were very like monotone. There was only 3 or 4 different colors in every one of these, but they were still absolutely horrifying moments, and they're just weird. So if you're looking for a really strange game to play during Halloween, check out Faith. It's good, and I don't really know what else to say about it. I just think you should take a look at it. If nothing else, just go watch the video on Steam. Faster Than Light. Oh my god. I don't know how many of you guys know Fast. This game is over 10 years old. Faster Than Light is a A-tier game. I almost want to put it S tier. The only reason I'm not going to put it in S tier is because I play it on ball-busting difficulty, and I feel like if some of you decide to go out and play this game based off of my suggestion, you're going to come back here and you're going to be like, this game sucks and I hate you for even suggesting it. FTL is a space travel game where you're trying to get from one side of the map to the other, and during that time, you're upgrading a ship, and you're getting your ass beat the entire time. That is the best way to put what Faster Than Light is. If you've never checked out Faster Than Light, if you are looking for a high learning curve, what is going on here kind of game, Faster Than Light is going to be your huckleberry. If you're having problems with Faster Than Light, it would probably be a good idea to check out a live stream or a YouTube video or something just to learn how to play the game, because it doesn't give you much. It throws you in the deep end and it expects you to swim. But once you start getting the idea, it is a very good game. Again, I'm not putting it S tier as much as I want to, because this game will frustrate the shit out of a lot of people. But I enjoyed it. I love Faster Than Light. It's old as hell. The graphics are dated as hell as well. It also looks like an old 16-bit style of game with pixel art graphics. But it is very amazing once you start getting into the ins and outs and start learning it. Getting over it. How many of you are familiar with the sledgehammer-wielding guy in the pot that looks kind of like me? If you're not, oh man, that's great actually. If you know it, God have mercy on your soul. You know my pain. It is a game that constantly taunts you. It is a game that is out to get you. It is a game that doesn't give a shit about your sanity. But it's an interesting time. And as a live streamer, it's something to enjoy with my community. Even though I wanted to scream more often than not, this game was still fun, and for some odd reason, I wanted to continue to play it so I could get more and more progression. I don't know why. Most people are going to say this is a D or F game. I'm going to call it a C. I mean, it's an average game. There's nothing great about it, but it was fun, and I definitely had a good time with it, and it was better than Alt F4, which was a huge piece of in my opinion. If you're looking for another one of those ball-busting games that constantly punishes you for getting further and making one wrong move, well, Bennett Foddy's Getting Over It is going to be absolutely for you. Gunbrella. Now, Gunbrella, this was an interesting one. They came from, darling publisher Devolver Digital. I love Devolver games. I think Devolver does a lot of good work. And Gunbrella was another good one, but I didn't really get hooked. The game was very well done as a twin-stick shooter that has, a little bit of platforming in it. There's some progression where you're running back and forth in between areas. It does have a somewhat Metroidvania-y feel to a degree. But there was a lot going on in this game that I just couldn't wrap my head around. I thought Gunbrella was definitely a game that could have come out and really knocked the socks off of people, and I'm pretty sure it probably did. The gameplay doesn't feel bad or anything like that. It just wasn't one that really hooked me. I think Gunbrella is a D game. I wanted to like this game more than I did, and for whatever reason, I couldn't do it. It was a game that didn't really hook me. The story didn't really get me. It seemed very cookie cutter. There was just not a whole lot that really wanted to grab me and bring me back. It was a game that was definitely trying, and I think that some folks out there are going to definitely enjoy it, but this one was one that just didn't really hit with me, so I feel like it was just a little bit below average. Maybe it was average. I don't know. And I don't know if I even called, maybe I would call it a D plus, C minus. I don't know. What the hell do they rate things in school anymore? I don't know, guys. Anyway, it's a D game for me. Hadean Tactics. Now, this is one that kind of came out of left field on me, too. I wasn't expecting this one. I was suggested this game by one of my moderators on Twitch, and if you enjoy a auto battler that has deck building but also has unit management, this game is absolutely amazing. I don't know if any of you even know what the hell this game is, but this is an A game. I played the hell out of this game a couple times on stream, and then I played it even more when I was off stream in my downtime. That's how much I enjoyed it. It has like a level up system, kind of like Slay the Spire. That's how the map looks. It's very Slay the Spire and inspired. It also has, again, like the auto battling of it was really interesting. The abilities you use during the auto battles were really cool. That's what your deck building comes in. If this is something that sounds interesting to you, you should probably go check it out because it's going to grab you. I mean, I enjoy those styles of games. I'm not really huge on deck builders, which is probably another surprise me even putting it in A, because usually deck builders make my asshole pucker up. But Hadean Tactics, for even being somewhat of a deck builder, it grabbed me. You know, a couple different heroes that have different focuses on what their abilities are, and then a bunch of different units to complement you as you're like setting your chessboard up and fighting against the enemies. This one, again, it was not one I was expecting to play this year, and one that, again, came out of nowhere and I really enjoyed. So if any of those things sound good to you, go check out Hadean Tactics. It's a pretty good time. Hades. I'm gonna go ahead and throw this S tier. This is one of my top 5 games of all time. I played the shit out of this one in early access. It's the only reason I didn't really play it a lot more when I was live streaming and it hit full release. But if you're looking for a game that has excellent story, excellent art, excellent combat, and a bunch of other excellent shit, Hades is one that you should play. I don't feel like there's a lot of people out there who've never heard of this game, but if you haven't, please do yourself a favor. Go play Hades. This game is very good, and Supergiant deserves your money. Not to mention, Hades 2 is coming out soon, so if you haven't checked it out, yeah, go play this one. This will always be an S tier game for me. I will still go back and play it every once in a while on my live stream because I enjoy it that much, but yeah, Hades. Yeah, you should play it.
Thank you once again for watching the Old Man's FS 2023 streamed games tier list. Come back next week for part 3 featuring games such as Hi-Fi Rush, Hotline Miami, Liza P, and more. We would also like to thank our Patreon supporters.